She clearly, to me, I think the winning message, this was Trump's message in 2016, but not so much in 2020, was his message of America first.
Yes.
And I think conservatives need to focus on putting America first candidates because that's what wins. We have seen that that's the message that wins. Liz Cheney was voted out of GOP leadership in the House. She was with the third highest ranking member. Yeah. And I don't want to sound like I'm a big fan of Liz Cheney. I mean, she's a warmonger. She's as establishment as it gets. Her dad, I mean,
you don't even need to speak on it. We well know.
Her dad. So no one is a fan of her. But when you look at her voting record, she voted with Trump 98% of the time in the House. Really good voting record. And now they want to replace her with Elise Stefanik. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sorry if that's not how it's pronounced. Who has a absolutely horrific voting record. And it's this frustrating thing that conservatives have had a problem with since Trump took office. It's like if you wear the MAGA hat and you say you support Trump, it doesn't matter what your actual principles or voting record are because you support Trump. And so some of the things that she has voted for and against, one of them, she's voted for pro-amnesty bills. She voted against funding for the wall. She voted for the Paris Climate Agreement. She voted for preserving Obamacare. She is anti-drilling. She voted for the Equity Act before the most recent version in the House. She voted against, what's this one? She voted against a rule that would prevent internet providers from sharing data on customers' activities. So she is anti many conservative principles and important things to the conservative movement right now. But everyone is praising her that she needs to be the next person in GOP leadership in the House, when it seems like to me we're replacing Liz Cheney, who is total establishment, but she's conservative, with a rhino that is, she's voted with Democrats almost as often as she's voted with Republicans. And this woman is going to be the third highest ranking member in the GOP in the House. That's alarming to me. And I did see today, I think Chip Roy from Texas is going to challenge her for that position. And he's part of the House Freedom Caucus. So why do you guys think conservatives, Republicans are jumping on board with someone who has such a bad voting record?
Well, I think sometimes we care way too much about appearances, way too much about appearing, politically neutral, winning people on both sides.
Yeah.
When really, we should be sticking to our guns and we should be sticking to our values. You saw that with, when Trump first came in, there was so much of the establishment was against him. And, eventually they slowly started to fade away a little bit. And now I think a lot of those people are going to be wanting to get back in, and we need to make sure that that doesn't happen.
I'm actually I'm gonna volley against both of you guys on this one. I brought this last week a little bit when this had first there was a little bit of whispering that Elise Stefanik was going to be for lack of a better word, coronated as kind of the follow-up for Cheney. I would agree with you. I think that, Cheney, at the end of the day, her voting record, pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think very, very lowly of her and her family.
Totally.
I don't like their policy. I don't, particularly their foreign vision for the United States.
No.
But I think that she was removed for all the wrong reasons. I think that the idea that she stood up, I think she says it a little too much about January 6th. I think people are putting far too much weight on January 6th. But the fact that she was removed for being opposite the president on that issue is deeply problematic to me. However, I actually, even, and this is going to kind of be the completely bitter partisan part of me speaking, optically, I think this is a great decision. I think that there is a diversity of thought in the Republican Party, or there should be, and there has been for a very long time, that doesn't exist across the aisle, or hasn't until this kind of Rashida Tlaib, even more radical left developed. that, you know, the Republicans, there is a diversity of thought. We want different ideas. There is a difference between a New York Republican and an Arizona Republican. And that's, we saw this with Goldwater and Rockefeller in the 60s, you know, and we see it recur throughout, you know, throughout the decades. And I think that it does matter that these New York conservatives or these New York Republicans, maybe a little bit rhino, you know, I worked on Charlie Baker's campaign in college, definitely a rhino by my, you know, thoughts on conservatism. And I'm a deeply conservative individual. But I think that there's a place for those folks because at the end of the day, we need to be winning we need to be winning people based on states. At the end of the day, the popular vote, you know, doesn't matter. The states matter. And so I think values matter more than the states. But if you stick so closely to a kind of monolithic view of the party and you end up isolating states and just washing them off the map for blue, it's not helping anyone. So I am interested to see what she might do.